might be given a statement number, so he's going to be a few minutes late. Just
So I guess we will call us to order because it's 6 o'clock, and so we have a special council meeting study session regarding recreation facilities discussion, and so just David Miller is ill, he's not online. No. And so Monica and Bruce will be late, so take it away.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Brad Case, Parks and Recreation Department. This is a continuation from our discussion back on May 13th at your council retreat, where we talked about parks and recreation facilities. So tonight, the plan is to kind of get a little more in depth in terms of what we have and what we offer with our 4 existing facilities, and then also talk a little bit about the community center concept as well as the field house concept, which you heard about back in November of 2021 when some private citizens came before you and we kind of pitched that idea. So I'm going to talk about all of those things, and then the plan is to set a good amount of time up to the end for questions and discussion. So I'll launch into it. So the goal for kind of the outcomes for tonight is, to find out if there is interest from the council in moving forward with a community recreation center and or a field house. And if so, what would those next steps be? And then if the council is interested in going that route, what happens to the existing facilities? Are we relocating those in the field house / community center, or all the above? Or do they remain as is? And then also, talking about the aquatics component of it too, and whether that's included in this conversation. So currently we have 4 year-round recreation facilities in Ellensburg, totaling just a little under 59,000 square feet. That's the Racquet Center, the pool, the adult activity center, and the youth center. To operate all of those facilities, it's a little over $1.2 million for 2022. And this is a telling stat right here. The average age of those 4 facilities is 53.5 years old. So they are.
Nothing wrong with that. Just saying.
They're very mature. And with maturity comes with challenges. So I think our youngest one is the pool, and that one was built in 1979. So the adult activity center, built in 1960, it's 3,900 square feet, sits on an acre. It was originally built as a church. Operationally down there, we're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have 1 full-time employee and 1 part-time employee. It's a mix of drop-in programs and organized activities. The majority of the programs down there at the Adult Activity Center are probably 50-50 between organized and just drop-in. We have social programs, special events on Fridays, holiday events. We started back up our trips and tours program a couple months ago. So we're doing 1 to 2 programs per month. Just to give you an example, last month we went whale watching over off of Edmonds, and then they went up to the Tulip Festival. So all those trips and tours are pretty local. They're day trips. Occasionally we'll take an overnighter, but we haven't done that in quite a while. Provide professional services down at the Adult Activity Center, things like foot care, obviously very important for seniors. Seasonal things like tax services. We've provided driving classes in the past, kind of educational enrichment courses for the seniors. We do have a lot of facility rentals down there, 3 to 4 days per week. We're renting the space after hours to a variety of programs. It doesn't have to be senior programs. And then we also do a lot of senior fitness down there, balance, movement, strength training. We do that with a wide range of volunteers as well. So that's what's going on down at the Adult Activity Center. The Racquet and Recreation Center, that was constructed in 1970, and we've operated it since 1999. It's our largest facility, just under 29,000 square feet. It sits on almost 3 acres. Original purpose of the facility was an indoor riding arena and hay storage. We have seasonal facility hours out there. It's really contingent on the weather and the time of year. About the only thing that we do that's racket sport based that's programmed are contracted tennis lessons. Everything else is drop and play, whether that be racquetball, tennis, pickleball. We have some indoor batting cages and indoor soccer out there. We have a fitness room, and then we run some youth leagues and adult sports leagues. And we also partner with the local soccer association university. We have a privately owned space that's rented by a gymnastics company. They've been out there since basically the facility opened. We do some facility rentals, very minimal programming outside of athletics. And so, those organized sports programs, outside of that, we do not do much in the way of programs. We do not have a full-time employee out there. We haven't had one since 2020. And so we're running it with part-time staff. This was the first facility that I worked at when I came to the city of Ellensburg. And then we had 2 full-time employees and a wide range of programs that we were running. The pool opened in '79. As I mentioned, it's the youngest of our recreation facilities. We're open a total of 83 hours per week at the pool. So we have a pretty robust schedule. A lot of drop-in programs there as well, with the recreation swims, lap swims, fitness room, sauna, hot tub. Our scheduled programs are mostly the swim lesson program. And then we have 2 different kind of water exercise programs that we offer. We do have some rentals, although right now staffing is a challenge, so we're not doing a lot of those. And then we do special events throughout the year. Probably our most popular one is the dog swim that we do at the end of our, right before we shut down for Fair and Rodeo. We have a dog swim, and so people come in there with their dogs and swim. And then we also host different organizations, activities. So like Central Washington Disability Resources, they have their swim program there. East is a local youth swim team. They use that when they can't use the university. And so, and then like right now, the school district's doing their lesson program there. So they have, 2 weeks of lessons, like per school. They come in, they teach kids how to swim, and then they go away. So not only our programs are in there, but we have other organizations in our community. And then our last rec center is the Sam Bassett Youth Center. So that was constructed in 1965, and we've operated it since 2001. Just over 6,600 square feet. Original mini market, grocery store. During the school year, it's a drop-in facility, open from 2 to 6 for grades 3 to 8. Basically, at one point we let high school kids in, but we still do, but high school kids don't come and use it. We do not provide transportation to and from the facility. It's a get there on a bus or walk, since it's located right across the street from Morgan and down the street from Lincoln. We do get a lot of foot traffic from those 2 schools. So education programs, cooking classes, after school homework help, health and fitness, arts and crafts. It's a free program to the kids, so they can come in and use it after school for no cost. In the summertime, we do provide field trips, and we do have a nominal fee associated with those. Before COVID hit, we were seeing between 30 and 45 kids a day. So that's what we're currently doing. A lot of what we do is just kind of that drop-in, non-programmed, kind of self-guided recreational experience. Some of that's due to staffing, some of that's just due to what we have available kind of in our facilities. So
one step there.
what's that?
One
At the
step.
At the youth center?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 1 full-time staff member, then we have a 16-hour week position. And then we've funded it with AmeriCorps staff as well. We're actually going to go away from AmeriCorps next year, just because some of the requirements for how they use their members has changed considerably, and we can't use them in the capacities that we're using them in the past. And then we're also starting to see AmeriCorps leave before their term of service is over. They're there for 2-3 months, and then they leave and go elsewhere, and we don't have a way to recover that money. So it's become increasingly challenging to retain them, also to hire them. So we're through the budget process, we'll be asking for additional part-time staff at that facility, as well as the adult activity center. So kind of diving into what we have, discussions for the future in terms of recreation facilities. The community center discussion, Councilmember Tab was a part of that discussion when it started back in 2013. Seems like it's hard to believe that it was that long ago, but so the conversation started back in 2013, really focused around the adult activity center and senior programs and the lack of space at our existing facility. And the initial push was to build a new senior center. And so we convened an ad hoc committee comprised almost entirely of seniors to begin with. And I think at our first meeting, and Councilman Jack, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff. I think at our first meeting, we realized that this facility needed to be bigger than just seniors only. It needed to be a comprehensive community recreation center that served all ages in our community. And so the shift from seniors to community recreation center shifted right then and there. And so, we started as an ad hoc committee, really looking at kind of city operational needs first and foremost. What kind of spaces do we need? Do we want to be able to provide our programs? Kind of identified some of those amenities and then went out to the community through a community survey. We had 311 responses to that survey. And we asked a variety of questions. I won't go into all those details. I'll talk a little bit about some of the amenities that people wanted to see. By and large, there was support for community center. I think of the 311 responses, 88% of those responses were in favor of this type of facility. And so it was obviously something that people felt like we needed. The ad hoc committee then kind of got into location. Where is this? Where's the right spot for the community center? And then we dove into discussions with the Ellensburg School District about potential partnerships with them and using some of their spaces, which I'll also kind of touch on here in a second. And so, and that's kind of where that ad hoc committee kind of died. We didn't pick up after those discussions with the school district. But kind of in general, the idea behind the community center would be something along the lines of 45,000 square feet. And it would serve youth and seniors and families. Kind of the core components of it: gymnasiums, classrooms, banquet space, performing arts, senior and youth program rentals. We also talked about having space available for senior organizations. So RSVP could have an office there. The veterans group could have an office there. Basically, if you're a senior in the community and you're looking for services, you would go to this one spot and have everything there. From a timing perspective, this is back when Morgan was still being discussed and the future of Morgan was uncertain. So things like performing arts was a major topic because the community didn't know what was going to happen with the Morgan Performing Arts venue. Additionally, banquet space. This is before the event center rehab the Armory building and have some banquet space there. So it was a different time, obviously, and some of those needs have been met either partially or fully. And so that discussion, if it were to take place today, would probably look a little different than it did back in 2013. But this is what we were looking at back then. So we even got as far as kind of putting together conceptual floor plans for the rec center, just so kind of people had an idea, a visual reference of what a community recreation center is, because some people's frame of reference may not go outside of Ellensburg, and when they think of community center, they think of Howell Homes. We weren't thinking of Howell Homes. We were thinking of something a little more comprehensive than that. So, we're talking gymnasiums, we're talking multi-use meeting rooms, dedicated senior space, youth center space, that type of thing. Also, to give you a kind of a frame of reference, 45,000 square feet is very, very similar to the size of Lincoln Elementary School. So if you can picture that space, that's about what 45,000 square feet looks like. And we were looking at kind of a one-story type of facility. So as a part of our park comp plan that we did in 2016, asked a lot of questions about kind of communities' wishes and desires for recreation space. A lot of the comments that we got back through that process were we needed more spaces for families to be able to recreate. Through this process, we did a questionnaire, and so we hired a company to perform a survey. We had 350 responses. One of those questions was, if you had all the money in the world, basically, and you could select out of a menu of 11 different types of recreation facilities or amenities, what would be your top choice? The first one were trails, and the second one was a community recreation center. And so, and we had, I don't know, probably, if you look at our comp plan, we have, over 70 pages of community just responses and feedback, just comments. And a lot of those comments focused around the fact that we have very few indoor spaces during the winter time specifically to be able to go use. So back to the survey that the ad hoc committee did, there was a question that had 16 different options and we wanted people to pick their top 5. And so these were the top 5 responses to that question. And so senior programs, youth, gym, commercial kitchen, and an indoor walking track. So that kind of gives you a pulse on where the community was at in terms of their needs. And some of those are, honestly, they haven't changed too much. So location, again, was one of the areas that the ad hoc committee focused on. We kind of developed a location wish list or criteria. We wanted it to be close to schools and senior housing because those were, 2 of the primary users of this type of facility. So having something in town that people can get to, easy access, preferably on a public transportation route, connected by neighborhoods, connected by sidewalks, not something that kind of sat out on an island, connected to outdoor recreation space. So, if possible, located it within a park facility. A lot of the community centers that have been built in the last 20 years have that indoor-outdoor component to it, and most of them are sited on some type of park facility. That also allows you to expand in the future. So as your facility grows or your needs grow, you can grow with it theoretically and have the space to be able to do that. We're having that discussion right now with City Hall actually, and how we've kind of outgrown the facility here in the last 20 years. So those were the things that we kind of our wish list or our checklist. And then we went out and started looking at a variety of different spots. I don't think I missed any here, but I may have. We looked at, we talked about Veterans Memorial Park and trying to locate something there just because of, primarily the proximity to the pool and having that kind of all of your facilities in one spot. The pool wasn't really a part of this discussion back in 2013, 2014, because we had just invested over $1 million in some improvements and some upgrades to the pool. So when we were looking at kind of our existing facilities, that was not really, it was part of the conversation, but not really. Where the Racquet Center and the Youth Center and the Adult Activity Center were certainly more of the conversation. So located at Veterans Memorial Park, you'd have that opportunity to locate it next to the pool. We actually toured the old bowling alley facility to look at that. We went into the YMCA building on Water Street. There was some vacant property near the Adult Activity Center that we talked about, and then the repurposing of Morgan and Lincoln. And then we also talked about Rotary Park as a potential location for it as well. So the preferred location, this wasn't fully supported by everybody with the ad hoc, but ultimately Mountain View Park landed as the top location. I would say primarily due to the size of the park. It's a 7-acre park, and so you can incorporate it into the existing footprint. It's close to schools and senior housing. A lot of the soccer activity in our community is relocated to Rotary Park, and so you would be displacing that function at the park, but you can incorporate it in other city park facilities. So that was included in our master planning efforts back in 2016. So this is in our parks plan. So the partnership with the district, we actually hired NAC Architecture to do an assessment of the Morgan Middle School property, to change that into a community center, including concept designs and project budget. At that time, Morgan had tried to, or the district had tried to pass multiple bonds to do something with Morgan, and they hadn't they weren't successful. And a lot of the comments back from the community where we really love the Morgan building, we don't want to lose the Morgan building, it's history and it's wonderful. And so we looked at it, this is a way if the school district wanted to build new, they could, and then we could retain Morgan as a community center, and that way the community doesn't lose that kind of historic building in our town. We got pretty far down the road with them, and ultimately the district decided that they were going to rehab Morgan, put it out for bond again, and passed. And so that was kind of off the table. Then we did the same thing with Lincoln Elementary School, and didn't get as far as doing any studies with Lincoln. But the community, I think, was more outspoken that they don't want anything to happen to Lincoln other than be a school. So we were kind of waiting in the wings in case the bond didn't pass when they rehabbed Lincoln, but that obviously passed. So at that point, we kind of stopped talking about it a little bit. I think some of it had to do with the fact that we know that this building is going to be a major investment, and some of the concerns centered around the fact that if we have another project out there that we go to bond, we have all these other district projects that are happening that we just kind of need to take hit pause on it for a little bit and then come back to it. So Bruce, I don't know if I missed any major points with the ad hoc.
I think it's pretty good overview.
Okay. And then so shifting to the field house type of concept, and really what that looks like, or, what we think that kind of looks like. Obviously you heard from the group back in November. We haven't heard much back from them. I know that they're kind of doing their own thing. They're still working on it. There's still a lot of interest. But comparatively speaking to a community recreation center, this is a lot bigger. And so, I think our local group is thinking, in the neighborhood of 250,000 plus square feet. I think anything bigger than 75,000 square feet, you're kind of considering that kind of a field house type of facility. Really the focus behind a field house is team sports, and it's more athletic based than probably a community recreation center. And so it would be an ideal spot for winter practices, for rugby, for football, lacrosse, baseball, softball, all of those kind of out of season sports. There is no out of season anymore. People play sports year round. It never ends. And so, 40 years ago, nobody was thinking about playing baseball in the wintertime. You just put your glove away and you picked it back up in the spring. That's not happening anymore. And it's basically every single sport. And so you'd have a large space for those types of activities. And then you would have court space for volleyball, basketball, pickleball, tennis. And then, kind of some of those other, at the risk of offending a couple of people, less mainstream sports, but like racquetball, having a space for people to play racquetball. In our community, golf, you can't play golf in the wintertime. There's no place to even go hit balls indoors. And so having some type of indoor type of facility for an activity like that, I think there could be a market for stuff like that. So that's kind of, outside of your general thinking when you think of a facility like this, but I think there's opportunities for a wide range of things to take place in a building.
But not a bowling alley.
That's even less mainstream,
Yeah.
apparently.
How does it benefit the community? It reduces our reliance on school district facilities. Right now, we have all of the different programs in the community using district facilities, whether it be city programs or the AAU programs or club volleyball. I know a lot of club volleyball programs right now actually drive in Yakima a couple times a week for practices because they have space there. So we're all competing for space at the same time in Ellensburg. And so it really pushes some of these groups outside of our community into other places. And so you got people traveling, in the winter time and get back in Ellensburg at 11 o'clock at night from their club volleyball practices. For us as a department, it provides additional programming space for programs. So, we could do new leagues like ultimate frisbee or flag football and have it indoors and not outdoors. We've tried to do those things outside, but, being outside right now isn't very pleasant. And for some activities, it just won't work. You can't, ultimate frisbee, which is hugely popular, is really difficult in Ellensburg. Some programs that are taking place right now, I could see the local youth baseball program using some of this space for T-ball. There are 5-year-olds out standing out at Rotary Park right now freezing, hating T-ball, and you could relocate those types of things into this space. The city did a 5-year tourism strategic plan with J-Ray back before COVID hit, and one of the things that came from that study was the biggest opportunity that we have here. One of the biggest opportunities is sports tourism and capitalizing on Rotary Park, the outdoor amenities at Rotary Park, but potentially the indoor amenities with all the infrastructure that's already in place out there. You know, this is going to be a sizable investment, but it's going to be a little more manageable because of everything that we have out there already. So I really think that, you know, community-wide could bring a tremendous amount of revenue in our community. So this is from with the sports hub over in Chehalis. And so this is a 75,000 square foot facility, and it's just a large open space. And as you can see, you know, it's a mixed use between those court surfaces with basketball, pickleball, and some of the soft surfaces where you see that must be like either lacrosse or indoor soccer in the bottom right hand corner. But it's just a big building, and you know, if you have something like this, people are going to be coming to Ellensburg. So community center versus field house, kind of what are the differences between the two, or the differences that I see, or, you know, with the community center, those programs are going to be run by the Parks and Recreation Department. Those are going to be city sponsored activities and events. Whereas a field house, you're looking at larger events, probably run by, you know, third-party organizers often, and yeah, the city can as well. But you know, if you have tournaments out there, you're going to have probably somebody else coming in and running those tournaments, and not necessarily city staff. A community center allows us to expand programming opportunities for all ages and interests. You know, right now, if somebody comes in and they want to teach a class that requires classroom space, we're really limited on where we can put them. And so, you know, we have to do it outside of the park, or we have to find, you know, a place off hours in our current facilities. You know, we can't have a 9 a.m. senior class that they're learning how to, you know, do XYZ just because we don't have the space to do that. Whereas the field house, that focus is going to be on athletics, it's going to be practices, games, tournaments, that types of thing. Community center, we're going to serve a wide range of recreational interests. We're also going to serve local residents. That's going to be the primary user of a community center, compared to a field house, especially on the weekends. You're going to be looking at a lot of people coming in from outside the community to use that space for tournaments. Community centers, more small group, kind of individual use. The field house is going to probably depend on the time of the day of the week. You know, Monday through Thursday, you're going to see all the local groups going out and using that type of space for their activities. And then on the weekends, you're going to see potentially an influx of people coming into our community to use it for tournaments and things of that nature. We're starting to see that at Rotary Park. We actually had a gentleman move into the community that runs tournaments. That's what he does. He works for a company on the west side that runs tournaments. And so this past weekend, he hosted a second tournament out there. He had 40 plus youth baseball teams at Rotary Park using 8 fields all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Local teams can participate in those, which is great, but it's not the local league that's running it. It's a third party. And so it does a couple things. One, it keeps all those local teams that go and play tournaments, it keeps them here for the weekend, because if they're not here, they're going to go play somewhere else. And then it brings in a tremendous amount of visitors to our community. I was at a place on Saturday afternoon for a couple hours with some friends, and the number of people that were in there wearing their baseball uniforms, you know, you could tell that they were out of towners that were there just hanging out because they were in between games and they needed to go grab a bite to eat. And so, you know, a lot of money comes in with those local tournaments. So I think, you know, weekends, for the majority of the weekends, this type of facility is going to play host to that type of activity.
Brad?
Yeah.
When you bring up money, are you
So they bring in money, are you referring to like sales tax and lodging tax specifically? That would
Yeah,
be the-
that and tournament fees. I mean, so you structure your facility, so you recover, I mean, obviously you're gonna be making money off of it, but the real dollars come into your local economy.
So in terms of an income generator for the city, is there any business model that the field house structure would provide
Yes,
besides those two?
It would be bringing more people here to spend more money at shops, restaurants.
Okay,
yeah, every chamber of commerce they have, I mean, there's formulas that they have. I mean,
I meant in addition to sales and lodging tax, just to be clear, yeah, like earned income.
Like, if we have to float a bond to build a field house, how do we service the debt? That- I
Oh,
think
thank you. That's what it was.
That's, I mean, that's the underlying question.
Well, so, yeah, so we could potentially talk about lodging tax money for the field house, but not the community center.
I think the field house would be a more appropriate use for I mean, you could make the argument for the field house, probably it'd be a stronger argument than the community recreation center.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, that is correct. Lodging tax has to be used to attract visitors. And so community centers tend to be local residents using the facilities. And so if you're talking about a resident or a tourism attractor, that's an appropriate use of the current lodging tax. The RCW actually calls that out. Supporting.
So this ties back into our conversation about the rodeo arena. I mean, I think our current stream of revenue, like lodging tax, is not going to service that kind of debt comfortably. Community, a field house is $10 to $20 million minimum. We're, so.
We have $100,000 a year or so to spend.
Yeah, and it was
unless we don't
250 to
spend on
service half of what the rodeo was talking about,
Well,
so.
no, actually, my question is that I thought that the county had established a large project path. I mean, it was my recollection was it's convoluted, significantly flawed,
And
But
they,
other
and they
than
have
that-
not advertised
but other than that. I'm trying
to get on the
Well, and
list.
Well, no, I'm just
And that to be
saying,
in the plan.
no, but I'm saying, they did establish a path for larger capital investment. You're right. I'm not, yeah,
The county.
it's a county lodging tax. It's a separate application from all other applications. It is truly cumbersome and a bit stupid.
Well, they haven't,
I can say it because we're not stream jet, are we?
they haven't, and they established what they were gonna spend money on 5 years ago or more and have not changed that.
Right, no, I'm not arguing, I mean, I'm just merely indicating there's a pot of dollars through lodging tax that would qualify under the RCW that potentially we don't necessarily control, that could be leveraged at the county level.
And if I were them, I'd be spending it on the event center and not Ellensburg Field House. I mean,
So
Yeah.
we're talking about how to finance something. We haven't made a decision how much we want to finance. And so I guess from my perspective, I hear this conversation and, we have 4 facilities. My guess is you didn't talk a lot about it, but the pool is antiquated in its mechanical systems and the pool is very soon going to need needs a new roof. That's 100%.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is pools don't last forever. I mean, they're in very caustic environments for all of that stuff. So I think at some point, if we do not look to also significantly upgrade, replace, or do without a pool, we are going to have a large segment of the community upset. And I look at this, and to me, if knowing that money is an issue, we really need 2 facilities. We need the community center, and we would like to have the field house. And I think the field house needs to incorporate the pool or a replacement for the pool. And I think the community center needs to be located on the south side of and be a combination of youth and senior activity center, just, for virtue of transport. So I think we need both, and I think we need to figure out, what we can afford, what we're willing to leverage. But I think the other piece about the financing is I want to look at all the options for financing, including room taxes and those types of things, because we're talking things about specifically that are designed to drop, money back into the community. I think the community has to pay for their community center. I think the field house, we can put together a taxing package that potentially largely comes from outside the community.
So can I add just a little bit here? And our goal tonight is to get council's temperature on what your interests of field house and community, and at a high level, what's in it. Because the funding mechanism depends on the what. And so let's answer the what. And then because, with the discussion from the event center last study session too, we talked about, we'll come back to you with funding mechanisms, because this is all part of the big picture. At your retreat, your priority was to determine how you wanted to move forward with recreation, especially your recreation programs. So that's this discussion, and then we'll bring that, to further refine it and also figure out how to finance. And I would just add one more thing, and that's really about tourism facilities. Typically, they never pay for themselves fully. And so as we look for how we fund things, there's always some level of public subsidy that goes into those investments. And so that's just part of how a community brings in and provides recreation services and helps fund that. So as we're working toward this, I just want to make sure to level that expectation a little bit.
We should clearly build a stadium like Wenatchee.
So I tend to agree with Rich that I'm struggling over the idea of the pool out at Rotary Park. I can get the field house out there. Is there any logic of putting the pool with the community center instead? And would that fit at Mountain View Park still? And I want to do the community center and get rid of the old adult activity center and youth center and Racquet Club. I want to close those facilities and replace them.
Yeah, I think there's enough acreage at Mountain View Park to accommodate additional facilities. I think there's pros and cons to doing out a Rotary, and I think that could be part of that process, that analysis.
Go ahead, Adam.
So as Rich was saying, I agree with what he was saying. At the pool to the field house, whether it's out of Rotary Park, can be discussed at a later time or not. But having that all as one big recreational facility, and we could potentially even talk about turning the pool building into the activity center itself. It's going to be revamped, but it'll be a little bit less than building a brand new facility, purchasing land, going through all that. And then we can also liquidate those other facilities, get them out of the cities, and put that money back towards these programs to fund them.
Is there enough square feet at the pool for your activity, the community center?
With parking and support, we looked at it, it's a 3 acre. What we looked at was keeping the existing pool there. So we haven't really looked at it. Keep having the pool and then a new community center. No.
So the idea at that point was the community center would drop it in where the carnival goes.
Yep.
And that the pool building would be potentially part of the rehab, but it would become part of a recreational complex. And then the other thought was that if we could do an MOU with the county, because they were doing the armory, they had the other facilities, that we may be able to scale back some of the meeting rooms and other activities by having that consolidated space. And then parking would have continued. So I can't believe we got this far in it, but truthfully, the building would have been pushed to the west, pushed to the east. Parking then would have come up to Chestnut. More or less.
Yeah.
But that was the idea. And we've done, which was how the bowling alley got in the conversation too, was we've done some preliminary work with county commissioners at the time about the possibility of a collaborative effort. That would have shared marketing, would have shared potentially staff. Yeah, that,
I think that idea makes sense but we need to explore and pencil things out. If the old, if we build a new pool, if the old pool shell can translate into a community center.
So
remodel.
does anybody have it kind of feels like we're all sort of understanding either the needs or the benefits or the combination of two for sort of all of the existing, to support all of the existing activities in potentially two new or some combination of remodeled and new facilities. In other words, maintain everything we can do, just update it, upgrade it significantly.
well, yeah, I
Is
think,
that what we're talking about as a general interest?
yeah, but for me, I think the other part of it is to Nancy's point. I mean, if we close all these others, which is part of where we never got to the last time, you know, what are the effective cost savings? Not cost savings, because you're going to assume those costs, but we are already subsidizing, to Heidi's point, the pool, and we're subsidizing the racket
All of them we are.
with significant.
Yeah. Yeah, all four facilities we are.
With significant dollars, but I mean specifically, the racket club has been a bone of contention for a number of years in terms of dollars and actual community utilization. And then the pools continue to have physical plant issues. And I think we've acknowledged there's a community benefit really in operating the pool. Because those of us that did neighborhood cafes and heard there's nothing to do for small children, none of us will want to sit here and say, oh yeah, we're closing the pool, good luck. But I think the other crux of that then is understanding both not just the capital, but the operational complexities that we're suggesting. Because I don't think we've had that conversation clearly at all. You know, and I don't know if we need to, you know, the big picture here in the what is, I think you're hearing that council's direction is we'd like to explore the possibilities that have been presented. And we want to do it in a way that's efficient and that's attractive to the community and potentially to a broader community. I mean, one of the other pieces, what I just that I think would be interesting to explore would be a public-private partnership on operating the field house. We've never put that on the table, but if we're looking at, I wouldn't say a bulk, but a good portion of activities that occur there on a year-round basis, it may be that we don't need to develop that as a core competence. We just need to develop that in a way that manages it efficiently and effectively, and then tracks revenue and expense. But I think that, so I mean, I feel like, do you want direction that says, you know, I don't know who, because it feels like we're getting to a level of complexity that we're not going to solve easily. I mean, is this another piece where we turn and say, let's go spec it, bring it back, go to the streets and see if there's somebody out there, through your knowledge, that would bid on a consulting contract that would get us these threads put together in a way that are comprehensible and answer some of those questions. Because it feels incredibly complex to me.
And I wanted to add our strategic pillar for sustainable infrastructure that I think you were getting at in terms of staffing. You know, what are the implications for staffing and maintenance and all of that in the buildings?
He partially addressed that one with a third party public partnership.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah, and we already have, you know, some of those pieces in place already. I mean, you know, with the existing facilities we have. So, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to have a, yeah,
Exactly. I
Yes.
mean, so you have,
yeah.
you have 3 employees
Yeah.
already minimum.
Yeah, we're not starting
That would
from
now be
scratch. I
located
mean,
in
we do have some,
facility.
But we need to understand,
totally,
you know, both what's the cost avoidance and closure, and then what the operational expenses are. I think that's all we're saying.
Yep.
I mean, that goes back to the Morgan conversation. I mean, one of the things that we had talked about would be, there would be a central entry point, in essence, you know, that could potentially be much more efficient than having 3 staff that are
Right.
always there in 3 separate
We
facilities.
could cover for each other and maybe we can
Yeah.
extend our hours
Or
I
something,
don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah.
and we just haven't had that conversation, we don't necessarily have the knowledge, ability to think. Ours,
To that point, has phones been considered and how?
That was part of the
this impacts-
conversation with the meeting rooms, being able to relocate that function into a community center and then having, the library potentially expand into that space for their library programs.
They would like.
they would like to expand.
Yeah.
We should know.
They are.
Jim's just trying to fill it in.
It's an empire of books, it's okay.
Well, I think with the population that we're expecting, it seems to me to have the facilities that we need for that many people and that many families, that many kids, that many aging persons, you're gonna have a huge staff. You have to have a huge staff. It seems to me. One of the things that I've not heard any mention of, and this is really not part of what we're trying to figure out tonight, but I'd like to see facilities that provide people who are fitness oriented, a chance and a place where they can go work out, climbing walls, things like that. For kids, there are a lot of kids and a lot of parents that don't care about sports. And I don't think we're meeting the needs of those folks right now. And that's not a criticism. It's just, I think it's a reality. So I would like to see when the actual planning starts, that we do have a broader look at folks that could use the facilities that don't have a place to go right now. There's
Yeah, so the other thing that occurs to me is we may want to look at a semantic shift in what we're talking about. One of the things we heard when we did the listening tours consistently was that there's not a place where people feel safe in terms of a cultural center or an ability or places for individuals of specific cultural identities. We may want to think about how we're framing the conversation. The conversation that we had at one point with old Keith and with Steve, was that it would be potentially a cultural center. And part of, I think, the excitement that Nancy had when you were first doing it was that that was exactly what we heard. People, our communities say to us as we were doing the listening tours, there's not a place to go for us to celebrate our culture. There's not a place sometimes where we can go to celebrate our culture and feel safe. And so I think we may, as we go through this conversation, want to broaden it from kind of a recreational framing, to truly a community or cultural center, and then build out from that in terms of the implication. I don't think it necessarily changes the programming, but it also changing the framing may actually build on what we're attempting to accomplish within the community.
Yeah, good point.
Do you have, does anyone have anything to add?
I don't know what we're gonna do if we're gonna have 12 minutes.
just have one question. I have a question
We
about
never
that.
have more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
So when you, the suggestion was made to put the pool, Rich, I think you did this, at the field house, were you thinking we could have swim meets and things like that, just like we could have baseball, football, or basketball tournaments and volleyball tournaments, and, a facility that would, and it could be a real revenue generation.
Yeah, pools are gonna be I think gonna lose the most money of any recreational facility,
Yeah.
but yes. No, I have absolutely no, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I think we need to have a pool for the community, and I think the pool needs to be co-located with one of the facilities. It doesn't have to be the field house. But yeah, I see the pool, if it's built to do it, it can host these events. those types of events in addition to filling the community need, which I think is a much bigger issue for us.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
agree.
swim meets are necessarily, unless you're like, amongst competition swimmers, are going to generate the kind of revenue
Federal Way
that
Aquatic Center is not.
drop softball players do.
What they're doing is they're building a pool that has a tank pool for swim meets and things like that. And then they have kind of a leisure pool area completely separate in the same space, but it's a separate facility. So you're
Talking $50 million.
you're talking, yeah. But I mean, that's really, when people, their aquatic experience today is much different than what it was in 1979. And so they're going to want something reflective of today's.
Yeah.
It seems to make sense in terms of resource management, but locker rooms, changing rooms, to put those.
There are
two
a
together.
tremendous amount of efficiencies with co-locating facilities. I mean, all across the board. I mean, from snowplow removal to, I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
So we can explore all those ideas as, with the community as we move this forward, but I think we're saying we want it all.
Yep.
On the table.
Okay, yeah, that's what we wanted.
So,
And that's really helpful, guys.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the conversation.
so we will reconvene at 7 o'clock.